Good evening, everyone. I'm thankful to organizers for giving me this opportunity, and I must congratulate them on organizing a webinar with a theme on corona recovered patient because the theme, the high time that we should talk about, because sooner or later, in few months, we are going to get these patients in huge numbers. And right now, we don't have any data, we don't have any guidelines that how these patients will behave in post-recovery periods. And as the emerging evidence is there, there may be some sequelae in systemic organs or in the pulmonary organs. So it will challenge for us being an anesthetist to manage them in pre, peri, or post-operative phase. So my topic of discussion is the post-operative aspects of managing COVID recovered patients. Now, if we really see the data that how the COVID patient behaved for in regard to elective surgeries is that the post-operative mortality was found higher. In a Lancer study, it was shown that the overall 30-day mortality was about 23.8 in COVID patients who were undergoing surgeries. And the mortality was more in patients when they were confirmed in a post-operative periods. And the most common cause was of death was the pulmonary complication, which accounted for about 82.6% of all death. And the factors which are poor predictors were the independent predictors were age, elderly patients, emergency surgeries, major surgeries, ASA classification 3 and more than 3, and the malignancy surgeries. Similarly, another study which was taken up in Wuhan, there were 34 patients who were all were asymptomatic. But when they underwent elective surgery, the 100% of them developed serious illness post-operatively within 4 weeks, and there were 44% of ICU admissions and 20% of mortality was there. Now, it is really unclear that why COVID infection increased the odds of post-operative morbidity and finally death. Maybe because of weakening of immune system or because of the unmasking of previous subclinical viral infection in response to surgical stress response. Right now, at this time, we really cannot say anything. Now, what about the COVID recovered patient? As such, we have no literature regarding surgeries, but there's emerging evidence, especially within some Italian studies and UK studies, which have shown that they have some sequelae, either on the lungs or on the other systemic organs, but they have sequelae, they have incidences of fatigue, breathlessness, chest pain, and psychological stress even after 60 days post-discharge. There's one study by Fumigalli et al., where she observed that there was a clinically relevant decrease in PFTs. The mainly restrictive kind of pattern was seen even the 6 weeks after discharge. So as such, all these studies are the cohort kind of studies. But if we take guidance from the previous outbreaks like SARS and MERS, which happened in 2012, there also the Rivian meta-analysis observed that the 1/4 of survivor had reduced lung functions and reduced exercise capacities even at the 6 month post-discharge. And they do have cognitive disorders like depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorders, which was found even at the 1 year post-discharge. So if we take guidance from these studies or seeing these outbreaks, coronavirus-like outbreaks, we can assume that the fate of coronavirus is likely to be similar, though hoping that the majority of those infected will not have long-term pulmonary sequelae. But the major thing is that the 5 to 10% of the patients who were severe, who had severe COVID-19 pneumonia, who had ARDS, who had prolonged ICU stay, they may progress to advanced lung fibrosis or interstitial lung disease. And challenge is that the SARS and MERS outbreak affected few thousand, but the sheer scale of this present pandemic, the way it has affected millions of people, we are going to face a tsunami of patients with ILD or fibrosis or other systemic changes. So it's a big, huge task for us if such patients come for elective or emergency surgeries to us, as the disease course is still unclear. Now, what are the risks? The most important risk, the first and foremost, is the post-operative pulmonary complications because of the changes in lung functions, restrictive abnormalities, reduced diffusion capacities, small airways obstruction, and airway hyperreactivity. Now, the additional challenge is of superseded other viral infections like influenza, dengue, and chikungunya, which can be an additional factor in development of ARDS in post-operative period. There's a study in a New England Journal of Medicine which showed that uh, this cardiac surgery in influenza season was an independent risk factor for development of ARDS. Similarly, airway hyperreactivity, which may last up to 2 to 6, may contribute to post-pulmonary complications. Another risk is the hemodynamic instability, which may be due to the residual myocardial anatomical changes which are seen in the form of arrhythmias, acute coronary syndrome, and stress cardiomyopathy. All these changes, whether lead to or cause, they may lead to poor exercise tolerance and hemodynamic instability in postoperative period. So both poorer preoperative exercise capacity and unstable hemodynamics, they both are associated with poor postoperative survival. Now, around the another risk is the hypercoagulability. As we all know that the COVID-19 is a hypercoagulable state, and there's a high risk of arterial venous thromboembolic phenomena. It was shown that the non-critical ill patients have a rate of around 11.5% thrombosis, while the ICU patients have a 29.4% thrombosis rate. But whether these patients are at risk of clotting complications in discharge or in recovery period, yes, they can be, because these patients have a decreased mobility because of they may have breathlessness, they may have muscle wastings like myopathies and neuropathies, which are a result of prolonged ICU stays. So if there's a decreased mobility, they are definitely high risk candidates for clotting complications. Now, you may have these patients on anticoagulants in preoperative periods. So whether these anticoagulants should be continued till postoperative period or not, this is the thing that which have to be weighed as against the risk of thrombosis versus the bleeding in vital organs. That have to be weighed very specially in the procedures where intraoperatively heparin has to be used. Now, another risk is the use of steroids. Now, the lung fibrosis patient, all they may have received high doses of steroids for prolonged relations in COVID hospitals. Though, according to guidelines, the minimum of 3 weeks is the minimum of 3 week duration is when we think of adrenal insufficiency. But higher doses which have been given during the course of COVID pneumonia, they may cause suppression despite the less duration. So whether we should continue for the steroids in post-operative period at thinking of the risk of adrenal insufficiency, or there could be the risk of infections because of steroid, all this benefit versus risk have to be assessed. And one of the best thing is that during PAC, understand the course of treatment, see for any symptoms present or not, and then we can think of continuing in the peri or post-operative period if all causes of hypertension have been ruled out and there's a persistent hypertension. Now, another very important risk is the hampering of early mobilization. The post-operative early mobility is a very significant part of ERAS protocol. Now, this can be hampered in these patients because of the fatigue, pain, and diminished muscle mass, which may further increase the risk of pulmonary complications and venous thromboembolism. Another risk is the AKI. Now, what changes actually do this virus does on kidney is very less is known regarding that, and very less is known regarding the long-term recovery of kidney function. But it has been seen that the patient who developed AKI in ICU and who survived with CRRT, the substantial portion of patients continue to have dialysis at time of discharge. So how much recovery has been done, so how much damage has been done, we really have a positive literature in that. But we assume that these patients may be associated with AKI or CKD and hence the increase in mortality in post-operative periods. Now, another very important part will be especially in the patients who are on prolonged ICU stay, who were on prolonged mechanical ventilation, is the nutritional deficiencies, which may lead to the precipitation of electrolyte disorders in the post-operative period. Another thing in same set of patients who are on mechanical ventilation or for prolonged ICU stays is a post-intensive care syndrome, which may precipitate in the form of cognitive disorders or delirium. Now, cognitive disorders in elderly patient is one of the independent risk factor itself for development of post-operative complications. So these were the complications. Now, since these were the risks. Now, since COVID-19 can impact virtually all systemic major organs, so what should be the measures? The first measure, if we really if we really think, then if we consider the risk of reducing the post-operative complication, the first thing should be the deciding the timing of surgeries. Now, CDC has given some guidelines. The guidelines are that we should wait at least for the 4 weeks in mild disease, or 6 weeks in the patients who are symptomatic but not hospitalized, or 8 to 10 weeks in the patient who are symptomatic but they have comorbidities, or in the patients for ICU patients, we should wait for at least 12 weeks. But I think this all should be dependent on these guidelines should be set or be decided on individual case-to-case basis. So most reasonable approach at this time would be that the patients who continue to be symptomatic and PCR negative, the most reasonable approach definitely would be to delay the elective surgery until the resolution of symptoms is there. Or if surgery is time sensitive but not an emergency such as malignancy, it is reasonable to obtain pulmonary function test and CT lung scan to assess how much residual lung pathology they have, so that intraoperative and potential postoperative period strategies can be decided upon. If such cases come in emergency, definitely they have to be taken off with this stratification. Now, if really these patients have to be taken up, then integrated multidisciplinary approach, which involves surgeon, anesthetist, physiotherapist, and psychologist, that is likely to be needed. And we should set and follow the standardized care of protocols that need to be put in place and that need to be strictly followed. And one of the standard care of protocol is establishment of preoperative exercise rehabilitation programs, which can be developed in hospitals only. And it has been found that they can reduce the length of survival and post-operative pulmonary complications, where counseling about respiratory exercises, which can start from the preoperative phase only, like it may be incentive spirometry, it may be deep breathing exercises, both of them have some proven benefits, or it could be the respiratory physiotherapy. So that should be started in the preoperative phase only. Or we can have the graded exercise programs. In graded exercise programs, the mobility of the patient is increased very slowly, so that can help in mobilizing them, that can help them in improving their exercise capacities, which definitely will help in improving the post-operative outcomes. And all the mental health assessments should be done in the preoperative phase only, and the support interventions in the form of psychological counselings for decreasing the cognitive disorders should be done in preoperative period to improve the postoperative outcomes. Another measures are very, very important. The robust pre-anesthetic checkup, so that we can stratify the risk, we can classify according to ASA status. If we need, we should have done the PFTs and lung CT scans so that we can assess the patient. We can have very well stratification of risk done already in the patients. Second thing is ERAS protocols. The enhanced protocol recovery after surgery, that protocols should be utilized in pre as well as in the intra and the post-operative phases. If the patients who are on mechanical ventilation, we should follow lung protective ventilation strategies. The aim should be the early discharge. Early and safe discharge should be the aim. And that aim only can be achieved through early mobility, early enteral nutrition. The nutrition should be high quality protein with involvement of fruits and diets, fruits and vegetables. Even we can take the help of nutritionist. And the multimodal analgesic regimen should be used, so that we can minimize the use of opioids and we can think of early discharge of patients. At home, there could be a targeted rehabilitation which can be applied, and the targeted rehabilitation will be decided on the factors or the risks, especially which were assessed pre-operatively, and that may help in the safe home discharges. There are few measures which we can take to improving the post-operative outcomes. So finally, the take-home message is that the pre-operative risk stratification is must. A balanced and pragmatic approach may have to be undertaken in selecting the patient time of surgery. Multidisciplinary approach with standardized care protocols is the need of hour, and more researches and data is needed to form the recommendation and guidelines. Thank you so much.